So what happens when we allow happiness to happen now is that like attracts like. So when we're happy, we actually have more energy, we have better emotions, we attract better circumstances. So like attracts like, if for no other reason. That is a very good example of why we should become happy without waiting. So what is your action plan if you're a waiter? Because remember I said I wanted to share in techniques as well. Well, first, stop waiting. Stop waiting. Number one, stop it. Do your why game. So if you are in my Growing Our Happiness private Facebook group, that's in the file section. Or you could be signed up to this webinar series and you'll get it in your email. So doing the why game, that's how you get access to how that works. So do that and see what comes up. If the circumstance shakes out to be valid, I can't think of too many circumstances where that's true, but I'm willing to be wrong. So if a circumstance shakes out to be valid, just go after it. Start making action plans to get what you feel like you need. If you're honest and it doesn't serve you, which is most of the case, most of the time, be honest about it and let it go. If it is something you can't control or can't change for someone else, get real about what you can and can't do for other people and release. And that's it. I mean, it's not complicated, but sometimes we have to get really simple and overt with what we can do and what we can't. So I talked about it a few times. I was a waiter for so much of my life. I mean, I remember as even a kid thinking, well, I can't calm down and relax enough to be happy. There's too much chaos. There's too much change. I can't allow myself to be happy because I don't want to be caught off guard. Just like that. That's really funny. Yeah. So I thought I was protecting myself against change. I thought I was protecting myself against circumstances. I was using it as self-protection, that I wasn't going to allow myself to be happy. I wasn't going to allow myself to be relaxed because I didn't want to get caught flat-footed. And I wish I had some of these techniques back then, because you can go through this why game, right? Or you can go through the what if game and answer yourself. That's why I created all these things, is to give people a DIY resource to answer these life complications and to make us all happier, healthier, and more happy. Anyway, tangent. So I have notes, so I try not to go off on those. So I was a waiter. That was definitely one of my archetypes. Definitely. And that's why I wanted to share this webinar with the world, because so many people have this archetype. So let's move on to the other modern archetype that we're going to talk about today, and I need to get going. And that's the victim. So you might, if you've done archetype work before, you might be like, that's not modern, that's ancient, that's classical allegory. Yes and no. So what I want to talk about is how you can be a victim of external forces or internal forces. Externally, happy can be very threatening to people that aren't. And we've all heard about the monkey reference, right? So there was a really interesting experiment where one monkey was getting rewarded and the other monkeys would actually stop that one from getting a reward because they weren't getting the reward, right? What's interesting is that actually translates to happiness as well. So hedonistic happiness is experiential. You're experiencing something that gives you a feeling of happiness, a feeling of a type of happiness. So literally that translation is those monkeys were seeing someone else become hedonistically happy, and they stopped it because they weren't. Crazy, right? So psychologically, it makes sense for people that aren't happy to try and squash and push down someone that is happy. This can be a boyfriend. It's pretty common. A husband, fiance, wife, could be among siblings, friends, coworkers, customers, if you have a business. So a lot of my work is done at the crossroads between woo-woo and science. So to bring the woo-woo in is that when someone goes after you for being happy, then they're actually trying to steal or siphon off, or at least deny you that energy and that high emotion. Ideally, they can then take it for themselves. But even just denying you that feeling and that experience feeds their need. If we want to look at this from more of a scientific perspective, what we're saying is that that person who is not happy is actually looking for group homogeneity or congruency. So they feel threatened by an energy or body posture or emotion that doesn't fit the rest of their sphere. So depends on how you want to put this in a frame for yourself. But those are two different frames that you could work with. So check it, okay? Notice what is happening around you. Is there someone who is squashing you? Is there someone who is pushing you down when you get happy? And this makes a really good journal exercise. Go through all the people that you interact with on a day. What is their response when you're happy? Do they allow it? If we have a large number of people that are trying to squash our happiness, that can actually feed back into waiting. We're going to wait until we don't interact with these people to be happy because we're tired of being squashed. You see how these archetypes can actually layer? So what do you do? What are your options? If you realize that you can be a victim, what do you do if it's an outside force, if it's an external force? Well, the first one is change your group. Change the people that you interact with. There's a reason why Tony Robbins always goes on and Gary Vee always goes on about drop your duds. Because people that keep you at a low energy, you're not going to be functional. You're not going to be motivated. You're not going to see the potential to things. You're not going to see your own possibility. You're not going to work for your own health and happiness. There are so many things that this affects. So change your group. If you can't see your way to doing that right now, and definitely revisit that later, change your interaction. So we just had this today, at my brick and mortar Essential Healing. So some dude calls up, immediately starts with the manipulation and anger, and was trying to tell us we were wrong and we had all these communications that were false, and I never delete emails, so I know that's not true. I also have an email tracking system, so I know it's not true. I also track all the phone calls, so I know it's not true. So I just changed the interaction. It's like, can we help you moving forward? If not, here's some other businesses that you might appreciate. Done. You don't have to allow that into your sphere. So change your group, change your interaction, or you can gear up for the encounter. If you can't change it, if you can't mitigate it, if you can't that's not going to happen, then how can you gear up for the encounter? How can you mentally build a shield that I'm not giving my happiness up. I'm not allowing you to take my happiness. And when I say I'm not going to allow this other person, this other circumstance to take my happiness, what I'm actually saying, and I want you to get this, is I am making the choice to not give up my power, my emotional power. It is mine. It's like, I want to draw on the screen and like highlight it and all these things. When you give up your happiness to someone else, you are giving your emotional power away. So what do you need to stay strong?